ES put in a strong recovery to end the week. Is that the end of the correction? Here's what I'll be watching for next week. Last week started with a gap down below the bottom of the prior balance range, and then sellers defended every backtest for a steady downtrend to start the week. You can see how this was basically a balance break to the downside because of the tariff news over the weekend, and then sellers rejected the attempt to reclaim the bottom of balance on Sunday, which led to this steady correction to start the first half of the week. So early in the week, given the sell-off after the break of balance to the downside, early in the week the best setups were backtest shorts after areas that failed, then back tested, and sellers defended every backtest opportunity for lower highs in a steady downtrend. There were still opportunities for longs. There's still some two-way trading in here. It just ends up that those longs are just rotations, shorter rotations, day trade rotations back into supply, and then backtest shorts tend to make new lows. You can see how each area that failed was then rejected on a backtest and then made new lows and lower highs all week as it worked back down into 68.18, where it finally put in a little bit of a short-term low, and the failed breakdown of 68.22, the prior day low on Wednesday, plus the headline of the removal of the tariffs. We got a really nice rotation all the way back up with the short covering squeeze all the way back into the bottom of balance at 69.26 on Wednesday. We talked about this kind of stacked supply setup where if you have all of these backtests that have been rejected and then you finally start some short covering, if sellers don't step in and defend those, then you can just get this progressive short covering move all the way back up, which given the momentum from the headline, that ended up being what we got all the way, really strong squeeze that retraced the entire corrective move right back into the bottom of balance at 69.26. Then to end the week, buyers were able to clear 69.26 for another rotation higher back into the mid pivot of the prior balance. So if you fail the prior balance, then you reclaim the bottom of balance. It does favor that rotation into the mid pivot at 69.70, and then if you're able to reclaim the mid pivot, you can get the full traversal from the bottom of balance all the way up into the top of balance, which is 7,007 to 7,018. So the end of the week was just spent consolidating after the headline squeeze, 69.26 and 69.70, with every bounce into 69.26 defended by buyers. For next week, we are trying to gain acceptance back inside this prior balance range, which was 69.26 to 7,018, and the key pivots to watch for next week will be 69.70, the mid pivot of the prior balance, 69.26, the prior balance low, and 68.64, which was a key pivot and reclaim in the middle of this week, and reclaiming that allowed us to get that full squeeze back into 69.26. Buyers' objective will be to defend 69.26 and then try to clear 69.70 for that full traversal to the top of the balance at 7,007 to 7,018. Sellers' objective would be to see failure of 69.26 for a retracement of that headline squeeze, which would favor reversion back into 68.87 and potentially 68.64. Now for the top weekly trade setups for next week on the long side, I would watch for a failed breakdown of the 69.11 pullback low from later in the week. If that puts in a failed breakdown, you can be long above it for that rotation back into 69.26 and possibly 69.70. Acceptance above 69.70 later in the week does favor rotation and that full traversal to the top of balance at 7,007 to 7,018. So you can look for longs if we're able to clear and hold above 69.70. And then lastly, if we do get a retracement of the headline squeeze, watch for buyers to defend back tests of 68.64, and if we get a larger reversion, watch for a failed breakdown of this pullback low at 68.37. That would be a very nice long, targeting that reversal into 68.64 and back into 68.87. As far as shorts, watch for a look above and fail of the prior week high and 69.70, the mid pivot of the balance. If we put in a look above and fail of 69.70, you can look to be short for that reversion back into 69.26. And also, if 69.11 fails, you can look to be short on the failure there for that retracement into 68.87 and possibly 68.64. And finally, if we do get the full traversal into the top of the prior balance, you can look for shorts into that supply zone at 7,007 to 7,018. That's what I'll be watching for on ES this week. If you want to trade live with real pros every day, join us at Trade with Insight.